All right, so we are here for part two. We decided on a part two. I guess since I was speaking very quickly, let me kind of go more into detail on what we finished up talking about in part one. So basically, I mentioned the Acclaim because we recently reviewed wrestling themes, and I put the Acclaim's theme song on there where it's Max Caster rapping, over. Surprisingly, I don't know if you guys noticed, but like. I'm pretty sure, like, obviously the stuff was like created by AEW, but like for the longest time, because they actually, when they first debuted, they weren't like technically signed, I guess you could say. Like there's a whole bunch of lore obviously when it comes to the Acclaimed and wrestling as a whole, but they started off basically as this makeshift tag team that appeared on their YouTube shows, because basically they have these YouTube shows called AEW Dark and Dark Elevation, which are it's basically a YouTube show where they have matches and they'll sometimes showcase talent that aren't necessarily signed with the company, just to give them a payday of working and being able to wrestle in front of a crowd and all that. And that's where the Acclaim started off. And through them just being the charismatic, entertaining two guys that they are, they built their way up to now becoming what they are now, tag team champions in AEW. And I'm trying to think of other groups that I can say similar to the gimmick that I was saying about, but like, I don't know, because of how much I'm into music, I just always knew that, like, if I ever were to create a wrestler, it heavily has to include something with music, which is why it's like I said, it would be impossible to pass through in the real world because of all the copyright and having to pay for music. But it would be interesting to see a character that, like, if they're like a party gimmick, their whole thing is like it's a different song every time they walk out, because I don't know, that's one thing, is people don't really like a lot of the theme songs nowadays because they're kind of mainly just like instrumentals, like they don't really. It's not to say that instrumental music isn't music, but like a lot of people are like, I want theme songs with lyrics that kind of tie into the character at hand. Like a good example that you guys sadly didn't get to see when it was the Clash at the Castle event, they brought back in a short way Drew McIntyre's old theme that he had when he was first with the WWE, and the lyrics heavily tied into the story at hand of not only him but his match against the top champion Roman Reigns. And so people were like, we want more music like that, or we want more sort of like tie-ins to the mainstream, like. It's another whole thing that I can show you guys too, where it's like people are just like, we want to see more mainstream tie-ins where you get like modern music tied in with wrestling, where you see, obviously they don't do it again because of the money factor, but like we want to see wrestlers using theme songs, or their theme songs being real life music. Like there was a guy that used to come out to Enter Sandman by Metallica. There was a group, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash in ECW would come out to oh my gosh, what's that song by the Fugees? Oh gosh, it's the one, You Can't Run, You Can't Hide, We're Gonna Find You. Oh my gosh, what is that song called by the Fugees? Oh my gosh. But they came out to like actual songs, and like obviously again it's a struggle because you gotta pay for it. Like Dom, you actually might like this because it's something recent. There's a wrestler in AEW. He's the son of a guy who used to wrestle. His theme music is an Action Bronson song.
No way, what?
And very recently, him and Action Bronson in New York teamed and wrestled a match against another tag team.
Dude, that's...
Action Bronson actually wrestled in AEW with this guy. His name is Hook.
That's great. I gotta see this. Hold.
Yeah. I don't know. And his theme song, through getting it licensed from Action Bronson, his theme song is a song from Action Bronson.
Yeah. Holy cow.
Yeah, so it's like I've always thought that would like that's like such a cool thing because a lot of people. Oh, by the way, it's "Ready or Not" by the Fugees. There we go. But that was the theme song that Kevin Nash and Scott Hall used in ECW, I believe. But yeah, a lot of people love when they include like these licensed music because like a lot of the times not only is it cool just to hear the song, but like a lot of the times the reason certain people get the licensed music is because it fits their character. You know, like CM Punk, once he made that change in character, he got Cult of Personality as his theme song. You know, also sometimes it's just really cool to see wrestlers making their entrance to certain songs. Like I know I'm spitting out all these names. I know you guys don't know them. But Bryan Danielson, formerly known as Daniel Bryan in WWE, he had I believe it was Final Countdown as his theme song back when he wrestled in a company called Ring of Honor. I'm trying to think of other examples. John Moxley has Wild Thing as his as his entrance music right now in AEW. Going back to CM Punk again, he had an AFI song as his entrance back in Ring of Honor, which honestly that would be a real interesting company to see Geo's character in because you can see the name, their whole style of wrestling and basically identity as a company itself is this whole like honor code. So like with their like championships, they call it the honor code where you know, you have to show respect to your opponent before and after a match where it's like you got to shake their hand before the match starts and all this. And they even have a title called the Pure title, which is completely, it has its own set of rules that sort of demonstrate that like sort of whole code of honor where it's like you're not allowed to strike with a closed fist. You get warnings about disqualifications before you're fully disqualified, and there's all this other stuff, you know. I'm trying to think of other examples, but that's kind of like what was my whole thinking, you know, because it just seems like it's such an easy sort of way to cross over into the mainstream, you know, because you heard Dom's excitement. It's like that's like a ton of people where it's like they hear that, oh, this artist that I listened to was on this wrestling show, you know, like think of how many people who know Action Bronson that were like, what the heck, he was wrestling on the show?
Yeah.
Like that can get people's interest, so it's like, I don't know, I just thought that was like a real interesting thing, and I don't want to keep rambling on and not giving you guys time to talk, but funny enough, when Gio, this is so funny, when Gio said that his wrestler was a girl and all that, I don't know why, but like I think it's because of Gio's interest that like the first thought that came to my head was Gio's wrestler was gonna be an idol, and I was actually gonna tell him there actually have been wrestlers with the character of basically an idol as their whole character in wrestling.
Interesting.
I was kind of like, while you were talking, I thought like a cool idea would be if a wrestler had like different, like I don't know if it's allowed, but like let's say like one wrestler has like 3 different theme songs, and depending on the theme song that he comes out to, will determine how he fights. That would be kind of like a multiple personality taken like seriously kind of wrestler.
That would be an interesting one. I forgot what that movie was called. Was it I forget, but like that would, I don't know how people would feel about it, but a multi-personality gimmick would be interesting with the whole, like how you said, like not only but like the wrestling, like the music, but you know, imagine a guy who like depending on his personality, he wrestles a different type of style based on whatever personality is out, I guess you can say. Because I'm thinking in the sense of, my gosh, what was that movie called? It had a tie-in. It was by, was it M. Night Shyamalan? I think it was M. Night Shyamalan. Let me see. Split. That's the movie I was thinking of. where it's like you have a guy like that where it's like he has all these different personalities in him, and depending on who's out at the time, he's either a brawler, a technician, wrestles a crazy style, wrestles a more methodical style and stuff like that. That would be real interesting. I'm trying to think also to like give you guys different examples, because I know in a sense Walter is similar to the characteristics that Gio was talking about, where it's not necessarily for family honor, but Walter's a guy that like thinks the wrestling ring is sacred and should be treated as such, and so it's like his whole thing is about the honor of wrestling and upholding essentially the standards of wrestling. And if he doesn't think you qualify and meet those standards, he just completely whoops you, as seen through his feud with Darby Allin that I covered on the Game Day edition of podcast.
Okay, tell me if this is like going too far, because you see, like my character's about restoring honor to her family. Is it like she loses? What if like her mom just comes out and says you'll never be good enough or something like that? Is that going too far? I feel like that's going too far.
I don't think there is such a thing. Oh, well, there is such a thing as going too far, but the wrestling world never really knows about it, because I can give you two examples. Walter, he has a group called Imperium, and anytime his guys lose a match, he basically gives them a whooping. And Dom, you've seen his chops. He basically like chops them like about like 5 times on the chest or back for losing a match. Down in NXT, there was this girl named Xia Li, where her gimmick was kind of similar, but it wasn't like family. It was that she was working under someone, and so it's like if they lost, they had to go through training and all that, and like they had like these really cool vignettes where it was like them training, and you saw how brutal it was because of the fact that like they were losing. Like one of the guys like that was a part of this faction, like I can't remember if he was tied up, but he was there. And he just kept having to take, like that. I don't know if you've seen that workout where it's like the guy continually keeps getting punched and he has to like take the punishment. Like that's what was happening with him. If you want to say to improve, like her fighting, and so that she wouldn't lose, it was showing like Xia Li, like just kicking this wooden thing over and over. And they got pretty brutal for it, where it's like it showed like they were bleeding, like she was bleeding from continuously kicking that thing, but she had to keep going because their master wanted them to get stronger. And it was a pretty like crazy sort of thing, but like it was real interesting because it's like it's actual, in a sense, character development to their gimmicks. It wasn't just I lost a wrestling match, no big deal. It's like, no, I have to go through this punishment because I failed my group from not winning that match and not really doing much, So I don't think it would be too much for your character's mother to come out and say something like that.
No, it wouldn't really make sense for the mother to come out. The father, though, is because he's like the head of the family, and saying something like that to her, and then she like goes into like severe depression, where she has to be like hospitalized. And then she like comes back 6 months later like a new person. That would be interesting to see.
That's an interesting character development. But
I'm just trying to catch up to Dominic, bro, because what Dominic said is just on another level.
Yeah, Dominic was
trying really hard.
Level. But there's just so many like interesting sort of ways you can go with a character. Like right now, WWE has something going on where like it's this really cryptic stuff that you're having to like follow and kind of do a deep dive into. Like, so basically they started hyping up like this character called the White Rabbit and all this through a song. I forget the group, but they have a song called the White Rabbits. It's like an old group. They started playing it after the shows were finished, as the crowds were like waiting for, to leave and all that. Like they would play it. And it was like people were like, "What the heck is this?" And then they started playing to where they started showing like these little like vignettes about it, and then there was like these QR codes that you had to scan that would take you and give you like the next hint, and it's still going on, and people are like, they're coming up with all these clues, and like the craziest part is that I forget how it happened. I don't know if it was like a QR code or something, but people were like following the clues. and it led them to this YouTube channel where the only video on it was the music video for that song White Rabbit, and a recently uploaded video that they did where like it was supposed to like again be another hint, and everyone was just so mind blown at this dedication to the fact that like they probably sought out whoever owned this channel and paid them something to like, you know, private all their other videos, except the fact that they found this channel that uploaded the exact song that they've been using. And it's like, I don't know, it's just kind of it's such a gigantic pool of ideas that you can go with, even though a lot of people would be like, oh, this just seems like a rehash. It's like, well, almost everything is a rehash, but if you include your own little twists on it and actually include a lot of good like character development and pique people's intrigue, you know, it's not like they're gonna care too much about if like they've seen it already, if you're doing it in a different way, you know.
Yeah, there's many layers to this onion.
Yeah.
I would say.
But I'm trying.
Because like even thinking about it now, like I like just like her finisher, like my wrestler's finisher. What if she gets like a fake katana, right? That looks like real, and then she just like slashes the other dude, and he's like now dead, and that's how she wins the match. It's like that would be a sick finisher.
That would be pretty insane, and more than likely very difficult to get away with somehow, some way.
Yeah, because you're literally killing someone on stage.
What about you, Dom? What would your character's finisher be? I know I haven't shown you too much. That should be a video where let me write that down so I don't forget it. Having you guys react to different wrestlers' finishers.
Honestly, I feel like a finisher. Honestly, I haven't thought about this one, but I guess he would. Just continuously like beat his opponent down, just you know, with raw strength to the point where they're just down, but he doesn't pin them. Instead, what he just does is just, you know, goes up onto the what are they called, the
ropes, the
pants, the poles,
the turnbuckle.
Yeah, I hope that's right. He just goes up on that, and he just leaps high into the air with like a huge belly flop, just annihilating anything that's right below. But in that moment, he it would be maybe a 50-50 chance he just completely dismantles the entire ring, causing the ref to, you know, tumble over and everything else just to fall down.
I have a question about your wrestler. How big does he get? Like, give us
a height and a weight.
Okay, yeah.
So let's say since he's at a young age, beginning, he will be maybe, you know, like my size, maybe like 5'7" or something, 5'8", maybe 5'9", but he's skinny, so it's like maybe like 120, maybe 130, maybe around 120, 130 pounds. But he would get to the point of just constant, you know, working out, constant, you know, building his muscles, getting his leg game up. Then he grows up to be like, I don't know, maybe like 6'5", you know, heavyweight at maybe 280, maybe 300, but just pure, just muscle. I am maybe something like that. He grows up to be tall.
Dude, he should be like those because I know it's like some. Have you guys seen like those the strongest men competition?
Mm-hmm.
Like those guys get up to like 450 and just like body mass. Dude, imagine like a 450 like dude who's literally like all muscle coming onto the stage against like, I don't know, like some dude that's like 210. That would be insane.
That's not a bad idea. I like that. So yeah, but yeah, you know what I think about it? He could either be like a strongman type of like built guy or just like pure muscle type guy. It could be either or, but at the end of the day, he would be like taller and essentially just bigger and would overpower his opponents because, you know, I guess his dedication to just become the best of the best gets over him. That's what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
some other sort of ideas I've had. Um, I always thought a character, or well, I not haven't always thought, but like in recent year, it's become such a sort of character that I'm intrigued with, and it's not like some super deep character, but the whole like aspect of wrestling prodigies in a sense where it's not like they're coming from like a line, like their family was like full of wrestlers, like prodigy in that sense, but like in recent years we've been seeing like a ton of wrestlers who show up on the scene and they've been wrestling since like their teen years. Like I think I mentioned it to you too before, but out in Japan in that women's promotion that I watched called Stardom, there's a wrestler there named Azumi who she started training to be a wrestler when she was like 9, and she made her debut match for the promotion when she was like 13, 14, and has been wrestling for that promotion ever since, and she only just recently turned 20, I want to say. I think it's 20. And I just remember, like, I watched her and, like, I didn't know how young she was until one of her posts came up on when I was scrolling, and when I hit the translate button, she was talking about graduating from high school, and meanwhile I was in my first semester of college, and I was like, we're the same age? Because, it's today, October 1st, 2002. She is 20 years old.
Ooh.
So, she was training since 9, debuted in 2013, so she was 11, actually. And
damn,
she's been wrestling since then. And then there's, I think I showed you guys the clip of, what's it called, like that one girl who took like that bump to all the chairs on the outside, like at that small like show. She's actually like 16 right now. There's another guy wrestling who's like 17, who's like he signed a contract with AEW that he can't really compete for them until he's 18 because of the laws. He can't compete till he's an actual adult, but he's like 17. And he was like, oh yeah, I'm in my senior year. Once I finish up, can't wait to start wrestling for AEW. But at the same time, he's wrestling for other like independent promotions in the meantime. And people are just labeling these young wrestlers as prodigies because it's like, dude, they've been wrestling for like forever basically, and they're just so young. Like Rey Mysterio, I want to say started when he was like in his teen years. Like. When did he make his debut? Let me see. He made his debut at 14.
Damn.
So it's like I've always found that sort of like interesting, that you have these guys who are like they start wrestling so young, and like that's just sort of like an interesting like sort of like character to see. Is just like these prodigies who are like, They're the ones that are gonna usher in a new era in a sense, And the crazy part is Rey Mysterio's still wrestling and he's 64.
Yikes, dude.
Oh wait, what the heck? Oh, that's the wrong. Wait, who is this? Oh, this might be his dad, I think. Yeah, it's his dad. Never mind. Rey Mysterio's 47 though, still pretty old.
No.
How old is Sting? Because Dom, I think I showed you Sting before. How old is Sting? There's a wrestler named Sting. He's wrestling and he's 63. Dom, I don't know if you remember. It was the one I showed you, the guy with the face paint that he was in the crowd and he dived onto that guy that was on those 2 tables.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, he's 63 and still wrestling and taking some pretty crazy bumps as well. So it's like, that's another interesting aspect of it, is like, how long would you want to wrestle for, And obviously with the wrestling world, the other thing that's like crazy in a sense is you have to be constantly evolving in a way, because like there are some people who keep the same gimmick their entire tenure and obviously just make changes to it to keep it interesting. But there are so many wrestlers that they like constantly, or not constantly, but like they're changing their gimmick every like 1 or 2 years in a way to like stay fresh in a sense, you know.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I said there was another one. What was it? Or I think another sort of like cool character aspect would be like contradicting in a way, in a sense. Like, you know, you see a character who looks like very like dark and brewing, like a sort of like a, oh my gosh, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word, but you know, like a character like the Undertaker, how like, you know, he's very like mysterious and I forget the word I'm looking for, but
Dead.
not dead, but like, you know, they're just like this sort of like, they're not like a normal person.
Outcast.
No, oh my gosh, I don't want to say mythical, but like, you know, they have like this you know, like this mysterious sort of persona to them and all that. You know, imagine seeing like a wrestler like that, but yet their wrestling style kind of is completely the opposite of that. You know, like you see a guy with like his face is painted like a skull. He has like this really like creepy entrance, but yet he's out wrestling like a luchador, you know, or he's out here wrestling like a powerhouse, even though he's not that big and all that. Like, it would be interesting to see like those contradicting characters, because like an example I can give where it's not really a contradicting of character in wrestling style, but like appearance in wrestling style. There's Keith Lee, who let me make sure I get his height right. I think it's 6'2" or 6'3". Let me see. Keith Lee is 6'2", weighs 340 pounds, and this guy is flying around the ring like crazy. Dom, I think you remember his match I showed you. Remember where him and that other big dude were just completely like doing all these crazy dives off the top rope and stuff? It's like, that's sort of a similar line of thinking too. It's like, imagine seeing that, like, you know, a guy who's like all big and you think, oh, he's going to be like a power wrestler, he's going to be a powerhouse, and next thing you know, this guy's doing dives off the top rope.
Right.
Like, I think that contradictory style would actually be very intriguing to play with as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think another sort of one, it's like similar to the music. Imagine someone who's like, their character is taking inspiration in a sense from like other forms of media, like a comic book character, a video game character, an anime or manga character, you know? Where like their character, like they don't completely rip it off and do like a one for one, but like, you know, they kind of model their character after someone that like they enjoyed from like a video game sense, you know. But then again, I don't know how you do. I feel like it would only work in the sense of like if people just, because that's something too, is like a lot of people like to do references in the wrestling world. It's like, imagine I mentioned the idol thing. Imagine if there was a wrestler whose whole gimmick was being a cosplayer.
Isn't there one story like that?
I don't think there's one like that. I know, like I said, a bunch of wrestlers do make references to different stuff, but that's usually just for like their wrestling gears, you know, for their entrance attires and all that. Like, trying to think of some examples. The New Day came out as Gears of War characters. Seth Rollins has basically, in a sense, cosplayed as the White Power Ranger. Oh my gosh, what are some other cosplays I've seen? I think Zelina Vega cosplayed as she cosplayed as Vega from Street Fighter, and then she cosplayed as I forget the character from Naruto. We've seen some pretty crazy ones. As I'm mentioning this, imagine this in the wrestling world. I don't know how they'd get away with this in terms of copyright and all that. Imagine if they debuted a set of wrestlers essentially as the Power Rangers. That's their whole attire. That's their whole gimmick. And you literally see, like, the vignettes for them is like a Power Rangers thing, where it's like you see them talk or something similar. Like it's like a group, just debut a whole group, and their whole thing is like the Power Rangers, the Avengers, the X-Men, something like that. You know, imagine if like they were just to completely, in a sense, rip it off. You know, and that's their whole like group gimmick in a sense, is that they're like this group of superheroes, supervillains. I don't know, Power Rangers, like I said. You debut a group of 4 as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The crazy part is, all this stuff, you can only really get away with it in the wrestling world, because that's the only place that kind of gives you that freedom. Because my goodness, have we seen some crazy and very weird characters in the wrestling world that you're just sort of confused as to how they got by, in a sense, or who thought it was a good idea, or in the more positive sense, who came up with such a great character in mind, you know?
Yeah. I really like that one. The Italian guy. What was his name?
The Italian guy.
Yeah, like the Italian guy. He wore like spandex. What was his name? I think it started with an M. He's like one of like the biggest like guys in.
Oh, are you
like,
talking about Santino Marella?
Yeah, him. Dude, his character was hilarious.
Yeah, I know a lot of people kind of crap on, or like in the wrestling world, but like a comedy character is like the number one way to go to get like a big following and crowd support, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, people always remember the most charismatic and funny characters, you know? And it's like, sure, you may be an enhancement talent your entire career, but you'll probably make a ton of merch sales based off of it. Because, I don't know, a lot of people like to dump on them, but like, very comedic characters always have like that lasting impact, you know? I'm also trying to think, like, I'm trying to draw inspiration from different sort of like forms of media. Like there have been a couple of tag teams that have like in a sense played with the whole Mad Max sort of vibe idea. We've obviously seen characters like The Undertaker. I'm trying to think what would be like other sort of cool sort of media forms to take from. I
feel like maybe. Do you want to say yours first?
No, go. I'm still trying to think of what I was like going with.
I think it was like I don't know how it works, or if it's been done before, but it would be cool if they did like collabs with like existing TV shows or whatever, and like those characters came for like a special event. Like they wouldn't have to wrestle, but they would just be like present for like something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the other thing I was looking towards, I'm trying to think, it would be cool to see a character like Jigsaw in the wrestling world, where it's like, obviously it's not as brutal as the Saw movies, but you know, it's someone who slowly starts picking out different people from the wrestling roster and getting into feuds and matches with them, with the sole goal of making them atone for like their past mistakes, you know?
That would be interesting.
Like, that would be a really good one, you know, where, and like they were sort of doing that with this one character called The Fiend, where it looked like he was targeting different people that he felt had slighted him and wronged him in the past, but then they kind of went off from that. But like, it was a really cool idea where, you know, I would have loved to seen them continue to expand upon this, where it's like he had 2 gloves, one that said heal and one that said hurt, and I forget which glove it was, but like there was like, it was showing this trend where like he was attacking these different people again who had slighted him in the past, and his move was like the mandible claw, where it's like you put like your 2 fingers in the person's mouth and like kind of like wrench it in a sense. I don't know, like it's hard to describe the move, but like he would do it while wearing, I think it was the healing glove, and then these people would disappear for some time, and then come back as essentially like what was their like peak as a wrestler in terms of character wise. So like this one guy who was fighting Finn Balor, he had kind of been essentially stagnant for a while, and he faced him because they had some history, or I don't know if they had history in the past. I can't remember, but like he used that claw on him. They finished their match. Balor disappeared, and then he returned with like his old character and old sort of like personality and all that. And then when he faced Seth Rollins, like after a while, it wasn't really right after, but like soon after, Seth Rollins like went back to like this heel persona and all that. Same thing happened with like The Miz, where he was like a good guy at the time. As soon as he faced him, he went back to his old persona. Daniel Bryan looked like he went back to his old persona of the American Dragon and all that. And it's like, I think that would be like something cool to expand upon while tying in like the Saw thing, where like, but it would have to be with someone who's been established, you know, who's faced a lot of different wrestlers, that give him that gimmick so that he has the history to play off of. Because it wouldn't make sense if you debut a guy and he's going after this one guy and he's like, oh, you and I have history, and everyone's like, you two have never faced each other in the past before, you know. But I think that would be like a pretty cool idea.
It could also be like they get a new guy, and then like a new guy who's been like watching everything happen, and then he's like, I'm here to get you for this or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, that's a cool idea. Jack, have you ever like considered working as a writer for like WWE?
I likely, well, I don't know. They're under new management. It's no longer Vince McMahon, but if Vince McMahon was still there, I never would have been a writer for that man, because from what I've heard, oh my gosh, dude, a lot of the writers like basically hated their jobs being there, because it was like, dude, it would be the day of a show, like Monday Night Raw, hours before the show, and this man Vince McMahon was tearing up their scripts and making them rewrite the show literally hours before, sometimes minutes before the show was going on air, making them rewrite different segments. And you could definitely tell, because people who watched the product were like, my goodness, does this seem so thrown together at the last minute. But under Triple H, I mean, I don't know, maybe if it's different, but it could be an interesting idea. But I don't know if I'm, in a sense, creative enough to constantly be coming up with content the way they do, you know, having to come up with these character arcs and all that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I think there is like certain gimmicks that like they're kind of gimmies in a sense, and like easy like to pitch. But then at the same time, you gotta think, because a lot of these shows are running weekly, it's like you probably don't see a lot of these different character ideas that we have. Like you don't see a lot of people using them, even though they seem like gimmies, because it's like, well, how do I keep developing it, and what's exactly the story I'm telling through it, you know? Because like a cool gimmick would be like sort of like a hitman gimmick, you know, where it's like they hire him to do the dirty work, and he takes like he takes opportunity from anyone who's willing to hire him. But then it's like, well, what's the eventual payoff to his character, you know? Like what stories can he really get into if his whole gimmick is just being a hired hitman, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's like the people who are sort of like the heavies in a tag team or in a group. It's like, what is their eventual story other than just being the guy who does most of the dirty work, you know? But I'm trying to think of like other gimmicks I've seen, but I think that's really all I got left. I do think though, I mean it there is one, or yeah, her gimmick technically is an idol, because she actually tried to be an idol, she failed, and then she got into wrestling. And it's like, I still think a lot of people probably wouldn't like it. They'd probably think it's too much of a stereotype, or it feeds into stereotypes. But like, I think an idol gimmick would just be fun solely because of like, I'm thinking in the sense, I'm not thinking in the realistic sense, but like imagine the music they could use like as their entrance music to come out to. I think that's always going to be the most entertaining part. Is just like the whole entrance thing, because I don't know, if you grew up watching wrestling or knew about wrestling, it's like there's like a 0% chance that you haven't at least once imagined yourself like making an entrance, as a wrestler.
Dude, I used to do the Triple H like spit take. Every time he would come on, I would get in trouble for it because I would make a mess. But like I don't know, it's something that you have to do when Triple H comes out.
Have you ever?
Or came out.
Have you
I
ever
don't know if
done it
he
in the
still does
shower?
that. In the shower, yeah, definitely, dude. There's like so much water in there, dude. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, you
It was
just
so much fun, dude.
yeah. So it's like I think that's always gonna be like I think that's why when going back to the very start of this, I think that's why my whole thing was always like music related, because it's like honestly I think that gimmick would also work perfectly with Dom, because Dom's like Dom with his music is very much like I want to picture myself, in this setting, listening to this song. So it's like, imagine that, like having a song specifically picked out, like that you can imagine yourself walking out to as a wrestler. Like as I mentioned, imagine being like, I'm telling you, that's the perfect setting. Las Vegas, AEW Double or Nothing with its casino theme, walking out to Coin by IU is like that. That's literally the perfect setting for a song like that. I don't know. I just think, I don't know. If there's one takeaway from all this, it's that I wish more artists would start being, well, not only just the artists. I know it's not in the hands fully of the artists, but also the labels. It's like they should really be more lenient with lending their music to the wrestling world, because it would just make for some really good entrances and content. Because a lot of the fans already do that, where they make these edits with the music. Certain artists, or not certain wrestlers, having certain songs. Like I'll share with you guys one after the podcast, because it's an explicit like song and song name, but like people wanted it for this one wrestler, because not only is it his name, but like it fit his whole character and like entrance at the time. But any final thoughts from you two?
I feel like an idol wrestler would work in the sense that not like having other people's music, but having her own his or her own music. And I don't know, it could be like it's like have like an idol, but also a wrestler.
Yeah.
So she has like her like their idol life, plus being a wrestler. But it's literally just their life, like being a wrestler. It's kind of like complicated, but it would work in my mind, because like imagine like she's like they start developing their fans, and then like when like new music drops, that could be like her new entrance or their new entrance. I don't know why I keep saying she. Probably because I'm too used to female idols. That's a cool idea. I think that could work, but it would be like a lot of work for like the writers and stuff.
And to finish off, I still think some wrestler out there, if they ever happen to come across this, should take up Dom's idea.
Yes.
That would be
preferably if you're Mexican.
Yes.
I think that would be too funny to see. And then someone probably should just take up like the superhero gimmick, but truly like try and like not in like a comedy way. Like I want to see someone try and pull off I solely want to see if someone can do it, pull off a superhero gimmick in like serious manner. But with that being said,
would be even more interesting. I'm sorry, but like you see like that one like super like anti-hero from The Boys, the Amazon show,
Homelander,
where he's kind of like he's like a superhero, but he doesn't like act like a superhero.
Yeah.
Like your typical superhero. Yeah, that would be cool. Anyways,
that would definitely be an interesting take. But with that being said, I've been your host Jack, joined by my fellow co-host
Dominic Castillo.
Giovanni.
Thank you all for joining us for these 2 episodes. We will hopefully catch y'all Monday for I think we're reviewing first Kid Cudi's album, but with more discussion, we might just do both the show and album, but we will see then. But until then, remember, if it exists, we have an opinion on it. Thank you, and we will catch y'all in future episodes.